Scared to take the next step on your brilliant idea? Think that series of bad luck is a sign from the powers that be? Not sure whether it's divine intervention or just nerves? This is the video for you. Anxiety. The relationship between me and anxiety has been the longest, most tumultuous connection that I've ever had. You see, I lived with undiagnosed anxiety for about 20 years before I actually got help, which means that I've probably seen every single facet of anxiety that has ever existed. Well, not every single one, but you get the point. Panic attacks? Been there. Obsessive habits? Done that. Adrenaline? It was my literal lifeblood. Yeah, my resting heart rate used to be about 120 beats per minute when I was peaceful and calm. For context, a healthy person's resting heart rate is about 78 beats per minute. And while anxiety has been a constant throughout my childhood and most of my adult life so far, I have always had another powerful trait that sometimes actually made the anxiety worse. And that is my intuition. Now, every one of us is born with a sense of intuition. It is that gut knowing about the way things are going to play out. But for me, it was really hard for me to distinguish between intuition and just underlying anxiety because they both look so much alike. Was I afraid because I was actually predicting something awful happening? Or was I just nervous, you know? And finally, I can tell you that I have finally figured out the key to differentiating between anxiety and intuition. In this video, I'm going to share with you exactly how you can tell the difference between your gut instinct and your true knowing and just nerves. It is very simple. You're going to love it. If you're ready, let's do this. First things first, here's the premise I base all of my own understanding on. Intuition is generally understood as a subconscious perception that creates a feeling of almost a psychic knowing of what's going to happen. To me, I like to think of intuition as a function of the soul or consciousness, whichever works for you. Anxiety, on the other hand, is a disorder that causes heightened fight or flight response, even when there is no known threat that we need to fight or fly away from. In other words, anxiety is a function of the brain. A lot of us think that the brain and the consciousness are one and the same, but actually, I like to think that the brain is just a tool that our consciousness uses to command the rest of our body. Like a handy control panel where you can tweak every setting for the rest of the body without having to consciously mess with any of the other parts. Basically, the brain is your UI. And like a lot of tools, it is not perfect and we don't really understand most of what it can potentially do. And also, like most tools we use on the daily, the brain can often have manufacturing defects or can pick up bugs as we go about life. Sometimes your conscious mind can DIY a solution to it, and other times you just have to find a way to work around it. But in either case, intuition can be seen as a property of your soul or consciousness, while anxiety is a property of your brain, the tool. So here's the tricky part. We all know that 9 times out of 10, anxiety is irrational. It is usually stupid and makes a normal situation feel catastrophic. But ironically, it is actually anxiety that tries to rationalize itself, not intuition. You see, anxiety already knows that none of this is real. It knows that your fear is just something it has made up. So it's gonna go out of its way to try and prove to you that what it is saying holds some value to you. In other words, anxiety actively tries to find a rational explanation for its fears in order to make you think that the fear is completely based in facts. Intuition, on the other hand, is far more chilled out. Think of it like that turtle dad from Finding Nemo who is always stoned. It knows what's going to happen and what you should be aware of, but it doesn't push and nag at you to believe it. You can only really rationalize it in retrospect when you've gone through the experience and learned why you had that intuitive clarity. For instance, when I was around 10 years old, just chilling in the living room with my parents, out of nowhere, I completely freaked out. I had this strong, unshakable need to tell my dad not to get his usual train to work the next morning. I didn't know why, I just knew he needed to not get on that train. Like, for real. At first he thought I was just being paranoid from watching too many action films, but I didn't really care what he thought. I said my bit, breathed through the panic attack and moved on. I don't know what changed his mind the next morning, but he chose to take an earlier train rather than the one he usually took. And guess what? His usual train, that very morning, had a serious bomb scare. In retrospect, of course I freaked out, but it didn't shock me that there was something wrong with that train, because I already knew. The reason why I share this story is to show you the stark contrast between what anxiety and intuition feel like on a conscious level. While they are both joined by the common thread that is adrenaline, once you have acknowledged the sense of doom, intuition simply moves on while anxiety persists. Whereas anxiety is like, oh, you have to believe me. Look at all this awful stuff that's happening. You need to be scared. Here's 300 ways this could go wrong. Intuition is more like, hey, what's up? Here's the deal. This thing is going to happen. All right, peace out. And that leads us swiftly into point number 3. What do you want to do about it? This is the one that really changed the game for me, so put your listening ears on. We now know that anxiety is loud and bratty and naggy, but here's the big key. Anxiety tries to force you to change the outcome of a situation. Say you feel you're going to get lost in a crowd. Anxiety is the one that forces you to never leave the house or be in a crowded situation ever again. Intuition, on the other hand, comes with acceptance. It comes with a calm sense of understanding that the situation is going to play itself out anyway, and trying to push or resist the outcome isn't going to change it. If anything, resistance will just make it worse. In our example of the crowd, while anxiety tells you never to leave the house, intuition tells you to carry a map. If you're going to get lost anyway, might as well be better prepared and know what your next move is going to be, right? So while anxiety tries to push and resist and change the outcome of a scary situation, intuition accepts said outcome and devises a practical plan to deal with the fallout. And the final but most important way to distinguish between anxiety and intuition is through past experience. So here's the dealio. The mechanism of anxiety is actually just a heightened survival instinct. If you've had something super hurtful happen to you in the past and you encounter a situation even vaguely similar to what happened back then, your anxiety flares up, ready to battle for survival. If you've had a past filled with verbal abuse, you'll notice that even a slight change in the tone of someone's voice can trigger a panic attack. Simply put, anxiety works based on your pain from the past. Intuition, however, has nothing to do with your past. Sure, it might conjure up some bad feelings, but that's usually just to get your attention. Like with my example of Dad and the train, I did have a bad feeling and it caught my attention instantly because I was terrified of trains. If you've seen videos of crowded Mumbai trains, you might totally agree with my fears. But here's the thing, nothing bad had happened to me on a train. Every fear around trains for me was simply anxiety, but in order for me and the people around me to take my intuition seriously, I had to have a strong emotional response, hence the freaking out. But at the end of the day, nothing bad had happened to me on a train in the past, so I wasn't drawing on any past experiences. But here's an example of how anxiety actually functions. Dentists.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
I hate going to the dentist. It gives me all kinds of nerves and it makes me want to throw up and I hate it. Oh God, I hate it. I hate it so much. Why? Because I've had some awful dentistry experiences as a child. Hell, there was one dentist who literally tried to extract one of my decaying molars right out of my jaw without local anesthetic. I was 8. The blood and the pain were enough to have me run out of the dentist's office while dramatically clutching at my jaw. Then there was the dentist who accidentally drilled too deep and hit one of my nerves in my jaw. That pain is something that put me off the sound of drills forever. Seriously, I can't even stand the sound of mechanical drills that put holes in the wall. So all of the fear and anxiety I have around going to the dentist is based off of previous experience. Are all of my future dentists going to be even remotely as awful? Of course not. Will that knowledge help me become more comfortable with the experience of dentistry? Absolutely no way. Nuh-uh. Basically, intuition is like a pinprick. It hurts at first, but once you've been pricked, you know that the worst is over and it will only heal with time. Anxiety, though, is like a decaying tooth. Oh, it's definitely going to get worse with time, and the next time you have a cavity, you already know you're not going to want to go get it fixed. Side note, I should probably mention that towards the end of this painting, I lost a bit of footage because we had a power cut in the middle of filming. But thankfully I had all the different elements saved on different layers so you can see the exact steps I took anyway. Hopefully that makes up for the lost video. But anyway, to me, anxiety looks like red sirens speeding past me while I'm being spun around in a human-sized centrifuge. Intuition, however, looks like a beam of white light that brings beautiful clarity and peace in the midst of chaos. So I only thought it fitting to use this still as a reference for this painting. It just seemed to fit so perfectly with the theme of this video. I hope you found this little video useful and that it helps you differentiate between the voices of anxiety and intuition the next time you have a gut feeling about something. If you have enjoyed this video, then please remember to leave me a big thumbs up and subscribe down below because you know there are going to be more of these. If there are any spiritual or personal development type of topics you want me to cover, leave those in a comment below and I will be more than happy for us to dive deep into it together. But anyway, I'll see you on the next video with hopefully a lot less anxiety and a lot stronger intuition going around the world. Bye bye!